Hey everybody, we're going to finish out the week and take a look at some down ballot polling. So that's going to be everything except for president at the top of the ticket. So we're going to use 538. We're going to look at Senate, governor, as well as the U.S. House. And as the election gets closer, we are going to take a look at more polling, especially after Labor Day. A couple of years ago, I did weekly polling recaps. We're probably going to do that again. As I always say, many of these are just one poll from one pollster, and plenty of them are also internal polls from the campaigns or from partisan pollsters. So with that said, let's see what we've got here. We're going to start with the Senate, and we'll take a look at the last 1 to 2 weeks. So first we've got the U.S. Senate in Montana, and this first poll was taken August 10th through the 12th with 538 registered voters. The pollster is American Pulse Research and Polling. I can't say I'm going to be familiar with every pollster. It's always good to take a look at their background when you can. And the sponsor of this poll was a local media outlet, which is common. But we've got incumbent John Tester trailing by 6, 45 to Sheehy's 51. We don't get a lot of polls out of Montana, but it seems more and more likely that if Republicans are going to get that 51st Senate seat, it's going to start in Montana. Next, we've got Pennsylvania. From Quinnipiac, with a big sample size, over 1,700 likely voters, Bob Casey has a big 8-point lead over David McCormick, 52 to 44. All year I've been saying it's tough for me to imagine Casey going down, and even though I have seen a few polls that show it under 5 points for Casey, I think at this point it's going to take a red wave developing in order for McCormick to be able to pull it out. How about the other key Senate race in Ohio? The pollster here is Activo with only 400 likely voters, not the biggest sample size. But Sherrod Brown is up by 5, 53 to 48 for Bernie Moreno. That's one that Brown could easily end up going down in as we get closer to the election. Brown is the well-known incumbent. Moreno has to get his campaign going in full swing, but Brown is also popular enough to be able to narrowly hold on to that seat and run well ahead of Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think it's going to be a toss-up. The same pollster also took a look at that Senate race in California. I don't think this is worth taking a look at, but Adam Schiff has a massive 33-point lead, 66 to Steve Garvey's 34. That one, I think Garvey would be lucky to get it under 20. Then we've got to look at the Sunshine State from Florida, Atlantic University / Main Street Research. They've got registered and likely voters. Both of them have Rick Scott with a 4-point lead, 47 to Debbie Mucarsel-Powell's 43. That one, I've said Scott is not the strongest candidate, but given the lean of the state, he should be able to hold on to that under most reasonable circumstances. How about in Wisconsin from the Bullfinch Group with 500 registered voters? We just saw that primary, and this poll has Tammy Baldwin up by 9, 50 to 41 for Eric Hovde. That margin is looking a lot like Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. I don't think Republicans got a super strong candidate in that race. Again, unless a red wave emerges, it does seem very likely that Baldwin is at least going to be able to win by a narrow margin, if not well over that. Then the same pollster did Pennsylvania, and they had Bob Casey up by double digits, 12 points, 51 to McCormick's 39. Again, not the hugest sample size with 500 registered voters, but Franklin and Marshall also took a look at that race with over 900 registered voters, and they have Casey up by the exact same margin, 48 to 36. Then we've also got Michigan, again from the Bullfinch Group. Slotkin is up a very comfortable 10 points over Mike Rogers, 48 to 38. From Fabrizio Lee / Impact Research, they also have Slotkin ahead, but it's by a much narrower 3 points, 47 to 44. There's another one in California. Schiff is up 20, 53 to 33 for Garvey. Then we go back to the Siena College poll from last week in Pennsylvania. Bob Casey is up a gigantic 14, 51 to 37. That's with the likely voters. With registered voters, it's still a 14-point lead. Another one in Florida, we've got Rick Scott here. He's up a comfortable 10 points, 52 to 44. Back to Siena College in Wisconsin. Baldwin is up 7 and 8 with likely and registered voters. And in Michigan, Slotkin is up a narrower 3 and 1 point with likely and registered voters. So according to Siena College, Michigan is going to be the most competitive. But those double-digit leads in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, those do seem a little bit unreasonable from my point of view, unless some sort of a big blue wave ends up taking place. Then we've also got the recent Emerson poll in Montana that had Sheehy up 2, 48 to 46. And then we've got a little bit of Arizona. This is from Peak Insights, and that is a Republican Party internal poll. So keep that in mind, but it does have a tied race with Gallego and Lake at 46 apiece. The one just under that, though, shows a different story. Gallego there is up 11. So it's always difficult when you see inconsistent or outlier polling. We've seen that a few times in some races over the course of the year. So there's a few more down below if you want to keep scrolling down. You've got New York, there's some Nevada down below. Let's move on to governor. We've got a few polls here, and the biggest race is probably going to be North Carolina. And August 5th through the 9th, we've got 802 registered voters from YouGov Blue. Sounds like a Democratic-aligned pollster, and it is sponsored by Carolina Forward, which is a partisan sponsor. So they've got Josh Stein up by double digits, 10 points over Mark Robinson, 46 to 36. That, I think, is the biggest lead I've seen in this race, race. A 10-point lead does seem unreasonable to me at this point. I can see Stein winning it, but we've got another poll right underneath it from Signal. This is a little bit more balanced. They have 600 likely voters. And there it's only a 4-point race for Stein, 43 to Robinson's 38. Now we've got a Democratic primary poll here for governor of Delaware, and that primary is not until next month. But given it's a blue state, we've got 2 Democrats going at it. In this poll, Matt Meyer is up by 7, 30 to 23 for Bethany Long Hall. And that sponsor there is partisan for the Democrats, but given that it's just for the Democrat primary, it's not the biggest deal unless it was directly from one of the 2 campaigns. Going back to August 6th, we've got North Carolina again. From Redfield and Wilton Strategies, over 700 likely voters has Josh Stein up 5, 43 to 38 for Robinson. So there's not too many races for governor this year. The one before that is for the Republican primary in Missouri, and a lot of times primary polls are off by a lot more than in the general election. That's usually because there are fewer polls and because many times there's a lot of late breakers, and that can many times make polling a lot trickier. But they did have Jay Ashcroft and Mike Kehoe tied at 26, and that one Ashcroft, of course, got in 3rd place. Now let's move on to the U.S. House. This is where you start getting into much smaller sample sizes and much more partisan internal polls. So in New York's 3rd congressional district, this was actually taken late last month in July, and it is a Republican internal. This is the district on Long Island that Tom Suozzi was able to flip and win earlier in the year. And even though this is a GOP internal, it's showing Tom Suozzi with a 14-point lead over Mike LaPetri. That's 51 to 37, so that does not look good there for LaPetri. Usually partisan or internal polls want to present a positive image for their candidate or their party. There are a few times where an internal poll can show their own candidate losing and then they go on to win, but with a 14-point deficit, that does look pretty good there for Suozzi. Next in Ohio, in the 13th district, this is another GOP internal, and it has freshman incumbent Democrat Amelia Sykes. She's got a 4-point lead, 44 to 40 over Kevin Coughlin. Next in Michigan's 8th district, this is an open seat to replace Democrat Dan Kildee, and this poll is from the Democrat in this race, Kristen McDonald-Rivet, and she's actually showing her opponent, Paul Young, up by 1, 45 to 44. So again, maybe that's good news for Paul Young when his opponent is showing him up by 1 point. Maybe he's thinking he's up by 3 or 4, but as always, a lot can change between August and November. Next in California's 16th, this is an open seat to replace Democrat Anna Eshoo, and there are 2 Democrats in this general election. Sam Liccardo is up only by 1 point over Evan Lowe. Then back in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, we've got a rematch between incumbent Republican Don Bacon and Democratic challenger Tony Vargas. From the Vargas campaign, he's showing himself up by 2 points, 46 to Bacon's 44. Bacon has won some narrow races in the previous elections. And then we can finish it up here with some stuff on August 1st. In Florida's 8th, that's an open seat. It's a red district. Mike Herodopoulos has a huge lead there, 50 points, but that is from his own campaign. In Pennsylvania's 7th, incumbent Democrat Susan Wild is up by 2 over Ryan McKenzie. Wild won by a couple of points last time, so that should be another competitive race, but that poll is aligned with the Republicans and from the McKenzie campaign himself. And then in New Hampshire's 2nd, that's going to be an open seat. It's a fairly blue district, and in that Democratic primary, Maggie Goodlander is ahead by 16, 43 to 27 for Colin Van Ostern. Van Ostern has taken a couple of losses in his previous runs, including one for governor back in 2016. So those are some of the races for Senate, governor, and the U.S. House. You can always keep scrolling down and go back farther, but again, a lot of these polls have low sample sizes. They're partisan polls, and I expect there to be a lot of changes by election day, but this shows you where things are at in some different states and some different districts from some different pollsters. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about any of these polls? Do you pay any attention to them, or do you disregard them because it's so early? And what do you think about the individual pollsters? Who do you think has a great track record? Who do you think is awful? What do you look for in sample sizes, and what are you expecting to change? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.